listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to us on wherever you get your podcast from, and if you could, leave us a review and some feedback. It definitely helps us out to make a better show for you. This is episode 116, where we talk about some of the current events that are going on around the country in July of 2020. Plus, our regular special guest, Nick Hoffer of Hoff-Tech Industries, joins us to chime in. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 116 of Range Minded, the current events of July 2020. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined, as always, by...
Hey, me, Steve Zimmerman.
Yes, and we are joined by our usual special guest, Nick Hoffer.
Our most frequent.
I'm here.
Yes.
And as you can tell by the audio and us talking over each other, we're still social distancing.
Very much
by
so.
Like 500 miles apiece, right? That's what the standard is.
It feels like it. Even if we were next door, it feels like it.
We're not going to give each other coronavirus, that's for sure.
I know that it's not on video, but I'm also wearing a mask just in case anybody's concerned about that. I wouldn't want to spread any of my droplets through my webcam.
And by a mask, you mean your beard, right?
Yeah, I just push it up over my mouth.
That'd probably be pretty effective, actually.
It's probably as effective as an M95, so...
Well, that's the mask that everybody wears. It should be the best, right?
Exactly.
I really want to get one of those military issue M50 masks and wear that around. That'd be great.
Well, Mark, did you see my last Facebook video of the respirator?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I put up a video explaining that if you really want to negate the virus, you need to be wearing a full face respirator, just like you're talking about. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, and in reality, like, that's what I don't get is you should be, you need to be fit tested, both quantitative and qualitative, which if you guys have ever done that, that's an event. That doesn't take like 5 minutes. That's a 2 or 3 hour deal. And, so
tested?
To get fit tested for a respirator.
So I had that. I had that done when I was on the fire department, and I actually still have my SCBA mask from that because it's custom made to fit my face. Also, I had to shave my beard off for that. So there is no effective mask for a person like me with a beard.
Yeah, you can't wear a beard. You can't have a beard if you're going to be wearing a real, respirator type mask.
That's 100% correct. It's an ordeal, and so I get kind of frustrated, and I think Nick's probably a little frustrated with just by judging by his Facebook posts. But I guess that's a story for another day.
I'm just frustrated that I've had to be silent for so long. I've sat back and been silent, and you guys are getting the wrath of me finally speaking out.
I was going to say, in my opinion, like, if you feel like you need to, I'm not anti-mask by any means. If you feel like you need to wear a mask, then wear a mask. But I think we should all have the choice whether to wear one or not. I'm not down with the mandates, but whatever.
See, and I feel the exact same way. I just am getting frustrated that so many people have came up to me and, like, scolded me for not wearing a mask.
Well, maybe it's because
that's happened?
Multiple times. It actually happened to me today when I went to Winco. I had to buy a tri-tip because I was barbecuing.
Yes.
Dang it, Winco.
And that's very un-Idaho, I would say, because my impression of Idaho is that you do you, I'll do me, and we will coexist.
And
it's been that way forever.
That's how I felt too, but today when I went into Winco, I literally was the only person not wearing a mask.
Interesting.
Yeah, we went into a big box store that starts with the letter W, and yesterday, and probably 80% of the people wearing masks, but I'm getting all sorts of looks, and it might be because I'm just downright ugly. I don't know, but yeah, a lot of people looking at me weird. I'm just gonna buy a balaclava and with just the eyes cut out, and I'm just gonna walk around that way. They won't know if I'm robbing the place or what.
Well,
There's no such thing as robberies anymore because there's no police. So.
It's involuntary donating, right?
There you go. Perfect.
It's funny you bring that up, though, Steve, because I actually found a story the other day about what states you can conceal carry in and wear a mask or not wear a mask. Or, it's legal to wear a mask and conceal carry because, a lot of people might not know that, any kind of concealment of your face as a concealed carrier is a big no-no most of the time.
Yeah, and that should bring a lot of concerns to those of us who prefer to carry a firearm.
Right. But thankfully in Idaho, it is legal to wear a mask and concealed carry at the same time.
I believe Texas is one of those states where you cannot do that. I made a post about this on our Instagram page and had a lot of controversy, and people looked it up. I believe Texas is one of those states that you can't cover your face.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do now? Like, let's say Idaho changed that, and I'm pretty sure that all three of us choose to defend our lives with a handheld device. So what are we going to do? If Idaho mandates that, then what?
Well, I don't wear a mask even though it's mandated in my county and city, so I'll take the fine and preserve my right to protect my life.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say 3 words, I guess, is that concealed means concealed. Especially
because our mayor of Boise has invited BLM protesters to our city because their last protest didn't go as planned. So I would say I'll take the mask fine over not being able to carry my firearm.
I agree with you.
There you go.
And it's so frustrating that we have to worry about that kind of stuff right now. There's no reason that we should be in that point in our lives where we have to worry about it.
Worry about what?
Worrying about our rights as granted by the Constitution, or about the boundary set by the state under the Constitution and how far they can carry that over safety. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to turn this into like a political statement or anything on the show, but safety never can trump rights, or we lose them both. I mean, that's Benjamin Franklin said that, and it's a slippery slope.
Sure. Yeah, it's a weird world we're living in right now. That's for sure. But yeah, that's something I would say if you're concealed carrying and you're not sure about, maybe your state has a mask mandate or your county or whatever. I would look that up to make sure that you're not, make sure you are following the rules, or you are, taking that risk into your own hands. However you'd like to do that, if that makes sense.
So my question to those states would be, what is the bigger question? Is it, do you follow the mandate to wear the mask, because Austin in Texas has a mandate to wear masks, or do you follow the rule that you can't conceal carry while wearing a mask? Because one of those came before the other.
So you're gonna you want to bring precedence into it.
Well, what I'm saying is, which mandate law do you choose to follow? Because there's two conflicting laws in place at that point.
Right. No, I feel you. I don't know.
Well, I have a feeling that I know how most of our listeners are going to choose, but I think it's just kind of an unfair dichotomy, because there's a lot of people that want to be law-abiding citizens that, and maybe they have a family member that is at risk, right? But now they have to choose one or the other.
So then, the conspiracy side says, do you think that mandate of masks comes to disarm the legally carrying citizen?
Yeah, I don't know. That's really not up for me to say, because we could go way down in a rabbit hole. But
I don't want to go that deep. That just kind of hit my brain when we were thinking about that. Like,
it could be. I don't see it that nefarious as far as the mask mandate. I don't see it as a disarming thing, because if they were that overt about it, they would have just made some kind of a law to disarm. not some kind of a mask mandate.
Carry is not recognized right now.
Yeah, and that would be way more understanding if they did it under martial law and had some crazy, kind of like what they did down after the hurricane in Louisiana, where they started confiscating guns. That would be something I could see way faster than any kind of a mask mandate subverting any kind of.
What people listening don't know is Steve would be the first one of us to give up his guns.
He doesn't have any guns.
But I get.
Exactly.
First of all, they'd have to.
He keeps losing them in a boating accident.
And I would give them the wrong GPS coordinates.
But what's interesting though is you talk about, just the firearm, people carrying firearms in mass or whatever. I think the gun laws are going to change forever, sooner or later, because of all the people buying guns. That's one of the stories that I wanted to bring up. 3 million more guns in the spring of 2020 between Beautiful. The coronavirus and protests and all that kind of stuff. Sales jumped by 3 million and 1.6 million respectively beyond the expected level over the few months of elevated sales. It's an insanely huge amount of firearms are in the hands of new gun owners.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more, I think you could say, average citizens that are deciding to defend themselves now.
Well, I think they see the chaos, what's going on, and the stuff that's not being stopped. And it's obvious. We can just jump on Facebook and you can see what's going on. I mean, I don't have to dive into it. Everybody can see it. But normal people of any sexual orientation or race or ethnic, whatever you want to call it, they're all like defending yourself is a natural thing. Like, we all want to preserve our own lives and those that we love. And that's why we're seeing such a huge incline in firearm sales, because all these people, no matter what they vote for, now see that, hey man, if we don't have cops, or if I can't get out of my house, how am I going to survive? Like, I got to protect my family. I think it's a wonderful thing. And we've talked about this before. It's scary in another aspect because there's so many new uneducated gun owners out there that think they can just do whatever and have no clue.
Yeah, and that's why training is so important, but on the other hand, it's kind of odd because, you can't necessarily train in person in some places now either,
No, which makes it difficult. I mean, I know at the store we're still suffering from that. And Adam, I talked to Adam quite a lot, Adam Boyce with Marshall Blade, and he still struggles with that. So yeah, what do you do?
It's kind of a weird, bittersweet thing where it's like, okay, a lot of people now are kind of seeing the light, for lack of a better term, and and notice that they're able to to defend themselves and that they have the right to do that, and all that kind of stuff. But they can't get in this. It's harder for them to get the training that they usually would have.
Right.
So
and it makes me think about something else too. Nick mentioned the Black Lives Matter rally that was in Boise, and they're going to have another one here coming up, and obviously all over the country. And sometimes those don't stay too peaceful, right? Sometimes they get kind of out of hand. And honestly, I think it's both sides of the political spectrum get a little feisty.
Oh yeah, and, people get passionate is what happens.
And it is passionate. I mean, I have friends that go to the rallies and do stuff too, but it makes me so scared because, like we said, those people that have new gun owners or new gun owners are out there that may be going to the rally, that may be trying to defend their Second Amendment rights and don't vote for Trump or whatever. They could just get caught in the middle of this nasty mess of and maybe not understanding their rights, go to prison for life, or shooting the wrong bad guy, or something like it. It gets kind of crazy.
Well, we talked about it a couple of podcasts ago, where you had that guy who, in the Seattle protests, had to take not one but two police officer M16s, fully automatic M16s, away from protesters who had decided that stealing those was a good idea. Yeah,
that was one of my favorite videos that I've seen in a long time, dude. That he's a Marine.
Right. Yeah.
And he just walks right up and just snatches that gun away. It's so funny.
Yeah, Nick, have you seen that video?
I have seen that video, and I've actually listened to him talk on a few interviews.
Yeah.
And talk about what was happening during that, and it's really interesting if you guys haven't listened to it.
Yeah, he was just like
that was actually the second gun that he took. The video that you see is the second firearm that he confiscated from protesters.
Yeah, which I don't care, where you stand on the spectrum or whatever. Stealing police firearms, not the greatest idea in the world. Well, either way, I mean, even if people can't get trained, there's been a lot of firearm sales going on. Normally, there's, hold on, I had it right here, then it went away. Normally, there's, in January, February, the average daily level of firearm sales was somewhere between 80,000 and 100,000 per day. Then after the COVID-19 hit, it jumped to over 120,000 per day, and then 176,000 per day on March 16th.
That's awesome.
That's when we started the lockdown.
That's a lot of firearms. So over 700 additional firearms were sold in March, which is 700,000 over what normally happens in that month.
Well, and it's awesome, but it also sucks because normal guys like us that are just trying to scratch a habit of buying a gun every too many days, it makes it harder for us.
Right, and ammo too. We talked about that a week or two ago.
Yeah, that does suck.
So it's
so I actually wanted to go shooting this week, and I chose not to because I didn't want to waste ammo.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You don't want to train because ammo's a little more scarce right now.
Well, there's still, tools out there like the Mantis X or just regular dry fire. I mean, there's stuff we can do.
Right.
But it's just not the same as actually going to the range or going out in the desert and shooting at stuff, It sucks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But I think long term, having more people owning firearms is going to be a net benefit for us.
I hope so.
Well, because you're going to have just more people in general that have firearms and realize that, I'm a law-abiding person. I, follow all the rules. I've done my research. I'll get training when I can. After all of this blows over, but I haven't done anything wrong. Why are people trying to take my guns away?
Yeah.
I think you're going to see. I was going to say, I think you're going to see a normalcy of firearms ownership where it's maybe, we move in the other direction finally, in the right direction.
Maybe. We'll see. Hopefully.
I don't know. I'm optimistic, especially.
Speaking of taking guns away, I'm a pessimist.
I
that.
Know. Oh, I know.
I was going to say, talking about taking guns away from people, do you guys remember the McCluskeys? It's in St. Louis.
Yeah, I was going to bring this story up. The personal injury lawyers who were defending their home, but at the same time, they were defending or pointing guns at people and muzzle sweeping each other. So,
yeah,
kind of complicated.
So, I say this every time I have this conversation. Let the gun handling go at this point. So, for those two, let's focus more on why they did what they did and not what they did while they were doing what they did. Because it's not about their training level. It's about why they had to present firearms in the first place.
Well, and we need to understand, too, who they are. They're registered Democrats. They are first-time gun owners. There's this group that Mark just described in the new firearms ownership. So, sure, you're right. The gun handling kind of sucked, but I 100% agree with the premise of what they were doing, right? They were protecting their property. And
from people who had no right to be where they were at the time that they were there.
Sure, they broke into a gated community, right? And the McCluskey's house was closest to the gate, and they knew what was going on, and so they gathered their firearms to defend themselves. Now, the state decided they were going to go up against them, and they did. They confiscated their firearms, right?
Yeah, they searched their home, confiscated their firearms, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but have you heard what the Attorney General of the state's doing now?
I have not.
So he's going to pardon them.
Really?
Yes, and they need to be pardoned. And this is one thing that let's see. Now I got to find the. Oh yeah. So one of the circuit attorney that decided to go against them take their guns. This is a quote from him. He says, "We must protect the right to peacefully protest, and any attempt to chill it through intimidation or threat of deadly force will not be tolerated." So that was from the state first, saying, "Oh, you can't defend your property with a firearm because that's, aggravated assault or something like that." But yet they let the folks who were protesting damage private property and come through on their way to the mayor's house, right? The mayor just lived down the street, and that's where they were going.
Right.
But I have a hard time seeing how it was peaceful if they had already damaged private property.
Yeah, I mean, well...
At what point do you get to protest at people's private residence?
Well, in my understanding, or at least my perspective, like, protesting is obviously, you have the right to protest. That's under the First Amendment.
Right.
But rioting is not protected, right? And ruining or destroying private property is not protected. And so they bypassed the protest and went in straight into destruction of property, which is no longer under protection by the Constitution. That's why I say this couple had 100% right to defend what they had. They didn't know what was going on. I mean, they very well could have saved their own lives, even though they were dumb at it, but they saved their lives.
So the scary thing to me when I look at that is, if they would have used their firearms, there's no way they had the training or ammunition to stand up against that group of people. So they're lucky that those people stood down.
Yeah, there was 200 people in that march. 200.
That's a fair amount of people, yeah.
And at the most, they had 38 rounds.
Maybe.
In those guns.
Yeah.
If they were loaded at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they could have taken on 2 people in that group of 200.
Well, and I think maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I think there's nothing that they couldn't have done where they just sat and hung out. And like, you could have had the AR slung behind your back, and you could have had that pistol pointed at the ground, but pointing it at people, just it from a safety, I guess, if nothing else, a safety aspect bugged the hell out of me. Sure,
and it should, because you understand safety.
But I think we forget that first-time gun owners, those two specifically, they don't have that same thing going through their mind. And we might not either when the fear of being overrun by 200 people storming up your driveway who just broke down the gate of your gated community.
Sure, that makes sense.
We don't know where our mind is at that point, and if our training kicks in, and if you don't have training, it definitely doesn't kick in.
Yeah, because we always go to our lowest level of training. Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, I get the explanation. I feel like. Well, and maybe I'm trying to live in an ideal world, but it's tough to think about, pointing a gun at somebody. But like you said, I mean, Nick, you're right. If it's you have 200 people, your adrenaline's going, all that kind of stuff, and you're worried about your property and all that. Like, it's got to be a tough thing, Yeah.
So, Mark, something I would say to you is this: think about the worst case scenario for you of why you would have to take out your firearm to protect your home.
Sure.
That right there for them was their worst case scenario.
That was their.
There was 200 people threatening to not only kill them but to destroy and burn down their home. So in their mind, they probably, in a normal day-to-day basis, they don't want anything to do with firearms.
Right.
But because it's our right to own guns, they owned guns. Yeah. And they were the lowest level of training because they're not shooters, they're not enthusiasts. They owned a gun for a specific purpose, which was in case, God forbid, they ever needed it to defend themselves or their home.
Sure.
And in their mind and in their situation, that was the worst time, the God's awful situation where they were being threatened to be killed. and have their home burned down, from what I heard.
Right.
And they were scared, and they chose to get their guns that they had recently gotten because of this fear. And so for us as enthusiasts and instructors and people who shoot often, to nitpick and pick them apart, that's only doing us a disservice. Because when new people buy guns, yes, they need to get training. But when people buy guns and put them in the safe and they say we're only going to use these if the end of the world comes, it was the end of their world. If they didn't take those guns, he even said, my rifle was the only thing that stopped them from killing us. Mm-hmm. If he didn't do that and do what he did, he felt like he was going to be killed or hurt or his home burned down. He was being threatened.
That's fair enough.
So for us to nitpick them on muzzling and all of that, I guarantee you none of us have been in that situation. And we have training, so we would handle it differently.
Sure.
But they've skipped over us and gone straight to life or death situation.
Yeah, and you know, to your point, like I said, who knows what having, 100, 200 people in your world, walking down your street that you're not used to seeing, having those people walk down your street and being threatening and all that. Yeah, you're right. I guess, being an armchair observer after the fact, but just, yeah, it's a complicated situation. Life gets messy, I guess.
We've also watched like the defund the police protests where they're all about defund the police, no police. But the minute that something happens,
they call the cops.
They don't know what to do, and they need the police to protect them.
Right.
So when it comes to 200 people or busting down the gate of our community and storming up the driveway, and we've never trained to protect ourselves, all we did was buy the tools to protect ourselves. Well, shit, the time's come. Fight or flight. Are we going to run away or are we going to stand our ground? They chose to stand their ground even though they didn't know how to do it properly. Sure. And they won. They stood their ground. It came out nonviolent. It worked for them. Thank God that they didn't get in a shootout, because if they did, they could have easily been overrun.
Yeah, it would have been worse. It would have been terrible.
Those of us that know guns, when you're standing up against 200 people, if you were to take off a shot, you could easily be overrun. And like I said, they had enough rounds to maybe take out 5 people, 2 with their training level by accident. So they're extremely lucky they didn't get in a firefight. And for us as enthusiasts and instructors, all we should be doing is offering guidance, not critiquing them.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to teach that couple. I think that'd be awesome.
Sure. And you know what? I do agree with the governor and the attorney general saying that they should be pardoned, because they, like to your point, Nick, they said that, they felt like there was a life or death situation and they had to take matters into their own hands. But I agree with you too that said that they got lucky, because if something really did happen or something serious happened, there could have been some serious consequences. And we could have seen a lot worse situation.
And I'm also willing to wager they're the only ones on that street or in that development that was willing to defend themselves with firearms.
Well, and I didn't know that they were registered Democrats. That kind of even makes the situation even that much more complicated. You know what I mean? But that also might.
Yeah, I swear I remember hearing that on Tucker Carlson or something. They had an interview that they're registered Democrats.
But that also might lead credence to the fact that they didn't have any training.
Well, part of that too is he's also a civil rights lawyer, trial lawyer, who's working a case on police brutality to get someone out of jail. Like he was working on their side.
I thought he was a personal injury lawyer.
He works on both, I guess. He had an interview and he said that he's personally working a civil rights act to get a black kid out of jail who was brutalized by the police when he got arrested. So he's like, I'm actually working a case on their side. Obviously they don't know this, but they're like attacking me saying that I don't know, but I work on their side.
Interesting.
Craziness.
Interesting. Well, you know what though? I will say that shows that life is way more complicated in the real world, and they were faced with a real world situation. And you know what? I will concede to you, Nick Hoffer, that when the shit hit the fan, as some would say, they actually stood their ground. I'll give that to you.
Oh, and here's the other thing. I'm going to throw this out there too. I bet you they're more willing to defend their property than a lot of gun owners that talk big talk until it happens.
Sure. Yeah, I guess you're right. Is that the fact that there were people who did stand up and decided to defend themselves, might trump the fact that they didn't maybe necessarily do it in the right way. But I will say that we can say that they could use some training, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
All gun owners could use some training.
That's fair.
Those guys, I think it's unfair of us as a community in the gun firearms industry to critique them over the internet when they did exactly what we would tell someone else to do. Maybe lack of firearms training and etiquette, but as far as standing up for your rights and defending your home, like that's what we stand for. And sure. to demonize someone for doing that just because they didn't do it in all the correct ways will only hurt our cause.
Sure. Well, 100%. I don't think that they were, bad people. I think they were just in a bad situation.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I think we've kind of come to the middle on that one. How about that?
I think so. I don't know. You guys gonna have to. I might have to put you guys in a room with boxing gloves and.
Not at all.
I don't want to box. I don't like getting hit in the face. So.
That's why you just finished the fight right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve, what else you got?
Now I got to pull my news back up here. Oh, you heard, or maybe you didn't hear. So, what's her name? Tony McBride. You guys know that name, Tony McBride?
It rings a bell.
So she's one of Terran Tactical's babes, right?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I can't say that because that's sexist. Yeah.
We're going to censor
that. But she's also an LAPD officer, right? She's a cop. And in April, she was involved in a shooting. She pulled this guy over. Her and her partner pulled this guy over.
Oh, yeah.
I think for drunk driving.
I just saw this today. I didn't realize that was one of Terran's.
That's one of his ladies.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an influencer. That's what it says on that. She's a firearms influencer. Anyway, but she's obviously, if she hangs out with Terran, she's a great shot. She shoots a lot. She's a competitive shooter. Anyway, so this guy comes at her with a box knife. She tells him, hey, you got to stop. And then he just continued to lunge at her. So she shoots him. And because she's effective at shooting and she's proficient, the threat was stopped, right? You think it was done and over with. Well, this guy's 13-year-old daughter decided because she's a competitive shooter, she must have anger issues and aggression issues. And so they're now suing her because she maliciously took the life of her dad.
Because she's a competition shooter? I feel like she'd have more discipline as a competition shooter anyway.
She was overtrained, is what the article I read.
Overtrained? How can you be overtrained?
She was a competitive shooter, and she didn't take the what did they call it? Basically time and give it enough consideration because she's all about shooting fast.
As the guy is lunging at her with a knife. Now, they say, like in this article, is just a box cutter. If you guys remember, 2001, maybe a couple of crazy guys in an airplane took over an entire airplane with a box cutter and then flew it into the World Trade Center. Maybe you guys remember that or not.
3 airplanes.
Yeah. So, just a box cutter.
It's just a box cutter, and they only killed like 3,300 people.
Yep.
With a box cutter in an airplane.
Well, and if longtime listeners may remember, Adam Boyce talks about how his, the blade that he carries is a straight blade, just like a box cutter. There's reasons for that because of its effectiveness.
And I carry a utility knife because of those classes I've taken from Adam, because they are extremely effective at what they do.
And so, can you imagine? But again, like you said, a lot of people aren't in the know about that,
Well,
obviously
it seems she knew what she was doing. If you know, I know people that, I know people that know people on LAPD, right? Being a cop in Los Angeles has got to be one of the most crazy experiences you could ever endure. You know, if you make it to retirement, you're going to see more than you ever should see in domestic soil. Like, it's a war zone, especially right now. And so stress levels are already high. Of course, this was kind of before everything went crazy. But they're trained to stop a threat. But, you know, citizens should be trained to not start shit with the cops with knives, because you're going to get to a place where it's not going to turn out well for you.
Which is just the opposite now. Citizens think they have every right to start shit, as long as they record it with their phone.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. And so here's this gal, because she's famous and because she's a professional shooter, and because she was doing her job and wanted to go home at night to see her family. Now she's getting sued because somebody who broke the law and lost their lives now has a family that's hurting. Obviously, I mean, I feel bad for the family of the dude that died. Right?
Sure.
Losing a family member is awful, and nobody should have to go through any kind of a traumatic loss of a family member. But there's also repercussions of bad choices, and those flow through for generations in some cases, and that's just the way it is.
Well, and maybe it's me, but I feel like a competition shooter has more discipline, has better threat assessment, and better training overall than your average civilian or even your average police officer, for that matter. We've talked about that before.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, I have.
And probably only shot half as many times as she needed to.
Probably.
Yeah,
I bet it was 2 or 3 shots and it was over.
And they were probably all dead center mass.
Yeah, they're all alphas. Sorry, that's disrespectful, but they were all alphas. And I've said this before. Like, I have literally watched the training of top tier 3-letter agencies, and never been so sure that I was going to see somebody get shot in a training accident. Top tier 3-letter agencies, but I go to USPSA matches. I've learned more at USPSA matches than I've ever learned at any classes as far as proficiency and speed and accuracy.
Well, and with the proficiency and speed and accuracy comes discipline and threat assessment and, having fast eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That should all count in her favor, I would say.
100%. And hopefully she's got a good attorney. I imagine she's probably got people that know her that can help her out. Because you're 100% right.
With all of that said, you said this is current events. Did you guys see the shooting in Boise on, what was it, Friday?
The one in Star, or which one?
No, not that one. That one was the lady who stormed the cop car on Meridian Road.
Oh, I heard nothing about this, actually.
No, this is new to me.
So high-speed chase with ISP down the freeway, eastbound from Nampa, got off the freeway.
Of course it's from
the
Nampa.
Meridian exit, and this lady gets out of the car, and it's all filmed by a car following the chase, like a civilian, and he's filming this, and the girl gets out of the car, comes back towards the cop car. The cop has his gun drawn. He reholsters it, steps away from his door. The girl who he's pursuing slams his door shut and turns around to go back to the cop car, and he tased her in the back and took her down as she was high on some sort of drugs. They didn't say what kind, but
jeez,
it was you should look up the video. It was pretty unique, and it was cool to see because he recognized there was no immediate threat to him, no weapon or anything. So he reholstered his gun. She pushes his door shut, and then instead of letting her go back into her car and become a threat to others, he tased her, took her straight to the ground.
So it was an Idaho State trooper?
Yeah, it was a trooper.
Okay, that's
interesting.
I mean, that's awesome for them to be able to, and kudos to the officer, because that's exactly what they were trained to do. And I think that's exactly what they were trying to do with that one guy in the Wendy's parking lot, because, their whole job is to reduce any kind of injury or effect to the community and resolve threats as peaceful as possible. That's the point. And good on him for not just capping her, for one thing. He probably could have shot her and been justified as her rushing the car. But he understood that, hey, there's no need. And I'm sure right now officers, and there's a lot of amazing officers, not just in this state but throughout the country and they deserve respect because they try hard and they just want to go home, right? I don't think that I've never met a cop. I know a lot of cops. I've never met a cop that wants to show off his badge and shoot people for fun. And good on this guy for recognizing that and just stopping the threat with the lowest level of need.
Yeah, good for him.
So I also have some insight. I talked to Ada County deputies about that shooting in Star too. If you didn't hear about that.
Oh,
I know a little bit about
story,
it, not much.
Let's hear it.
So from what I heard, it was a high-speed pursuit of a stolen motorcycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
That ended with the suspect shooting at the cop while he was fleeing on foot because he blew up the motorcycle, and shooting the officer through his cruiser while he was trying to cut around in front of him. The officer took 2 rounds, one to the arm through the door and one to the shoulder, and then was still taking on fire while he was trying to put on his tourniquet outside the vehicle. And from what I heard, he had 2 surgeries and they couldn't remove the bullet from his shoulder. They had to leave it in place.
Wow.
Wow. I also heard that there was another officer that showed up and was able to render aid right away too. That was just right there on time.
Yeah, it was right after. So, and then they trapped the guy in the cornfield and tracked him down with a drone and got him to peacefully surrender. So they got him into custody.
I thought it was with a dog.
The officer I talked to said they used a drone.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's pretty crazy.
It was so Ada County has what do you call it? It's kind of like infrared drones that they use to search at night in fields. So they just fly them over the field and they can see body heat.
Wow.
No hiding.
They've been using those for like 10 years. When I was on the Kuna Fire Department, they used to call us out to let us use our infrared scanners to go through fields.
Impressive.
Because they didn't have the technology back then. But now they have drones that have that technology.
Impressive.
That's
man.
not.
So yeah,
that's not.
You run from the cops, you're not hiding.
No, you're not.
Yeah, but no, I'm glad it ended peacefully though too, especially with a guy shooting a police officer. I mean, he's gonna be going away forever, more likely than not. But
maybe, or he'll get 3 years probation. One of the two.
I mean, for shooting.
Well, they'll probably let him out of jail because they have a coronavirus outbreak. They won't want to put him in there.
Yeah,
well, we can't have.
That's a thing too.
We can't have him getting sick.
Yeah. Look,
So,
he was out of quarantine. He's been out in the general public. We can't put him in with the rest of the inmates. He might get someone sick. So just go free.
oh, geez. Well, in other local news, Nick, I don't know if you heard this or whatever, but for me, I bought a Glock.
Well, not only am I surprised, but I'm surprised you found one.
I was able to find a Glock 19M at the shop, actually.
He just hasn't been able to find any ammunition for it.
Yeah, I was able to shoot about 100 rounds out of it, and that's about all I've got so far. But we did a whole episode on it, that I bought a Glock and that I enjoy it, and I want to get better using it. So,
well, it sounds like we're going to need to drop off some holsters for you that you can train with it.
I may need a holster or two, and I almost Googled, best holsters for Glock 19, and then I realized Hoftac Industries is just down the road for me. So why would I even bother Googling it?
Well, go ahead and Google that because I think I own that ad word. So,
but no, that I wanted to see what else was going on with Hoftac Solutions and see what was new with you.
Basically, just working on building out the online space because that's where everyone's shopping now. So, I've hired a couple of guys to come on board and work on the website and we have Facebook ads running right now. I don't know if anybody's seen them, but I know some people have. So
yeah,
I'm pretty excited about that.
And you had trouble with your Facebook ad.
I had to hire these guys in order to be able to run those ads.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So the guy that I had work on it for me, he actually had a contact at Facebook, and he used that, and within 3 days I was approved.
Nice.
I still have to, every time I apply for an ad, I still have to get it reviewed a second time, but they usually get through within 24 hours. So
now, is that because of it's firearms related, or just is that the general policy anyway?
I'm sure it's because it's firearms related, but I don't know for sure, and I'm not going to complain because I know they're listening. My phone's sitting here, so I'm just happy that I can run ads. I've ran some traffic to the website, and I've had a lot of phone. Right now, the current ad we're running is for custom knife sheaths, just as a test, and lots of good response. So I'm not going to complain because I know they're listening.
That's smart man right there. Don't even question it. So, yeah,
Big Brother's always watching.
How's the H1 going?
It's going good. So we're still in pre-launch. August 1st is when they go on Amazon. So
cool. And how was that, getting that on Amazon?
I don't know, because I teamed up with the activity group and gave them 100% control. So I didn't do it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I have literally decided that I'm going to take what I'm good at, which is Instagram and manufacturing. And then I'm going to partner with people who know how to do everything else.
Smart man.
So that's what I've done. So I've got like 3 partners right now working on different aspects of internet marketing and internet sales. The activity group is doing Amazon and dealer sales. And then I've got 2 other people doing ads, and then the other one working on my website and also running ads as well. So
cool.
Awesome. So that you're already seeing the fruits of those labors, or not yet?
Slightly. So on the custom side, so right now the only ad that we're running is for custom knife sheaths, because it was a great little entryway to get into it, and kind of I'm running about $50 a day in ad spend to get it in front of as many people as possible. And I know I see it 3 to 4 times a day when I'm on Instagram, so I'm getting about 10,000 impressions a day, so it's pretty good.
Wow.
Cool. Well, everything's going
which is up from 0, so
that's a good thing. So, but yeah, no, I thought you'd be impressed that the conversation we had a couple months ago, where you just needed to, you told me, hey, you need to just buy a Glock and just do it, just make it happen. And I thought about it.
I'm glad that I'm influential enough that I influenced that.
Well,
you're an influencer.
That's true. It was the Instagram that sold me, really.
It's because I only post Glocks on Instagram.
Well, but you said that, and you and Steve both said that it's, the most common handgun in the world, and that, that there's a lot of compatibility with not only different size Glocks, but a lot of other things. And it makes sense to have at least one Glock in your inventory, but I don't think this will be my last Glock. So
no,
I'm just glad that he didn't say it was in 45 gap.
I found this used Glock. It was a really good deal.
Yeah.
Got it for $200.
And this guy's got a 357 SIG that he said he'd sell me for cheap too.
Yeah, it was a package deal kind of thing.
Yeah, I could see that.
But no, I was able to find a Glock 19M with it's got the trigger, or I'm sorry, not the trigger is the same, but it's got night sights. It's got the extended slide releases. It's got the FBI style magazine release, and it's pretty nice actually. I enjoy it a lot. So. I'm looking forward to getting better with it and having a lot more compatibility with not only aftermarket parts but holsters as well. So and that's the thing. Like you said, I need an inside the waistband holster for it now and an outside the waistband holster for it now, because I think it might be my main carry now.
Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to work up some left-handed Glock holsters.
Because I can't make.
Not only did you not own a Glock, but you're also left-handed, so you had to.
And I can't make anything.
Perfect storm.
Can't make anything easy for anybody.
Well, that's why we like you, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I try. So, yeah, I think that's all I got. I don't know. Do you guys have anything other current events or any other stories going on right now?
No, actually, I can't think of anything off the bat. I know there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, like we mentioned the riots and all that stuff. I think that goes without even mentioning. Like everybody knows what's going on.
Sure.
I would say this: if you are planning on going to a Patriots rally or whatever you want to call it, counter protest against Black Lives Matter, be respectful. If you are carrying, only deploy when that's absolutely necessary. I'm not a guy that likes the idea of walking around with your AR-15 strapped around your neck.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times.
I think that's a little counterintuitive sometimes, but carry a flag, be respectful, and don't be scared to communicate with somebody, but just stay out of the arguments and be safe.
So I 100% agree with that, and like to add to it that because we carry guns, we are more obligated to stay cool than other people.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Carrying a gun 100%. Does not make us any tougher than the guy across from us. In fact, it needs to make us more reserved. And I like to remind people that all the time. When you wake up and you choose to put on a gun, especially if you're going to choose to walk into a situation that is heated, you have the obligation to be the most cool-minded person there. So if you're going to go, say Tuesday, I'll be down at the Defund the Police rally in Boise. I'm going to stream it live on my Instagram page. I don't usually go down to those, but I figured I would come down to this one just because of what's going on. And it is our obligation to be the most cool-minded people there and not causing trouble and not welcoming trouble.
Yeah, and I think you can honestly say that on whatever side of the political spectrum you lean on, because I think cooler heads will prevail on either side and will garner more respect from either side, no matter what. So I think that advice really does go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And also, I just want to leave this with: make sure you're paying with exact cash.
Also that
and coin. Yeah. Make sure you're paying with cash and exact change, because we need to beat this coin shortage. There's only $14 billion in coins in circulation.
I know, we're really at a real problem.
And somehow somebody is hoarding all of that. And I'm telling you, if you had $14 billion in change in your house, you'd drop a hole through the earth to China.
Yeah, that's true. The sheer weight alone. So, well, Nick, why don't you let us know how anybody can find your website and get a hold of you?
So you can find me at hoftac.com, Hoftac Industries on Instagram, Hoftac Industries on Facebook, and 208 Patriot if you want to follow my personal page on Instagram.
Very cool. And if you want to get a hold of us, podcast@iishooting.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Range Minded Podcast.
Yeah, let us know how we're doing. Share it with your friends, all that jive, because we're awesome.
Yep, let us know.
Not as awesome as everybody else out there, but we're still awesome.
We try.
Absolutely. So. Make sure you leave these guys a 5-star iTunes review when you listen to the podcast.
Yeah, that as well. Wherever you get your podcast from, make sure you leave us a review and maybe some feedback. That helps us out a lot. So thank you for that tip, Nick Hoffer. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. I always like to leave with making sure we ask for reviews. So, and if you haven't seen it, I want you to Google Steve's face, because I just screenshotted him doing that thumbs up.
This one?
Yeah, that one right there.
Nice.
Love it. Yeah, throw that on your Instagram.
Is that going to be on your cell phone every time I call now? Like, oh, there's Steve.
Absolutely. I'm putting that on Google.
Love it.
Might as well.
You've got a one-of-a-kind face.
I'm dead sexy. It's all right.
Well, I think on that note, we'll end it for today. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Right on, guys. Be safe.
Guys.
Take care.
Take somebody shooting.
If you can find ammo.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.